Welcome back, everyone, to the wisdom of Lao Tzu.
Great to be back. Last time, we looked at chapter 11, didn't we? The usefulness of nothing.
Mm-hmm. The empty space.
Exactly. The space in the cup, the hub of the wheel, how emptiness creates function. It was quite mind-bending, really.
It really turns things on their head.
It does. So today, we're kind of flipping the coin. We're tackling what seems like the total opposite, but actually it's deeply connected.
Okay.
Chapter 12. And it's all about the paradox of, well, having too much. Overabundance.
Ah, the other side of the equation.
And precisely. And just think about this for a second. When was the last time you felt really, truly calm, like deep down calm?
That's a tough question these days, isn't it?
It really is. It feels rarer and rarer because, I mean, look around. We're constantly swimming in this sensory overload. Our screens are just flashing these super bright, hyper-fast videos at us, all designed to hook our attention.
Right, nonstop stimulation.
And then you've got the sound headphones blasting complex music, podcasts, notifications. It's just noise a lot of the time.
Loud noise, yeah.
And food apps delivering these incredibly intense flavors, super sweet, super salty, combinations that are just overwhelming sometimes.
Things our ancestors probably couldn't even imagine.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on social media, just this endless parade of luxury, travel, new stuff, always pushing us to want more, experience more, be more.
That constant pressure to keep up, to acquire.
Yeah. But here's the kicker, the paradox. And this is what Lao Tzu seemed to nail like 2,000 years ago. Okay. After this huge sensory feast, this buffet of experiences, why do we often feel, well, empty? Or agitated, anxious even.
Instead of satisfied.
Right. It's like our senses are stuffed full, but our soul or our core is starving. And Lao Tzu, he diagnosed this way back then. We're looking at D.C. Lao's translation of chapter 12 today. Let me read it out.
Please do.
The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 notes deafen the ear. The 5 flavors deaden the palate. Galloping in the hunt drives men mad. Goods that are hard to come by hinder their owner's movements. Therefore, the sage is for the belly, not for the eye. He lets go of that and chooses this.
Short, but wow. So much in there.
Isn't it just? It's incredibly potent. Let's maybe break down those first few lines piece by piece.
Good idea.
The 5 colors blind the eye. The 5 notes deafen the ear. Now, this isn't literal, obviously.
No, it's metaphorical, but deeply insightful.
He's warning about overstimulation, right? Too much dazzling light, too much loud noise. It doesn't actually make our senses sharper.
Quite the opposite. It numbs them, spiritually numbs them, you could say.
Yeah, numbs. Like if you're constantly seeing super bright, flashy images, you stop noticing the subtle stuff.
Exactly. The delicate beauty, the soft light, the way shadows play. It just doesn't register anymore. Your eyes get conditioned for the extreme.
And the same with sound. Constant loud music, maybe it drowns out the charm of silence or nature sounds.
Or even just the ability to hear your own thoughts clearly. That quiet gets lost. Our appreciation just sort of fades.
Okay, then. The 5 flavors deaden the palate. This hits home, I think, with modern food.
Oh, absolutely. We get so used to really intense tastes, extreme sweetness, saltiness, artificial enhancers.
Right. And then the simple things like the taste of fresh water or plain bread or a perfectly ripe piece of fruit. They seem bland.
Yeah, our palate gets desensitized. It needs that constant hit of intensity to even register flavor properly. We lose the joy and simplicity.
Then there's galloping in the hunt drives men mad. What does that evoke for you?
It feels like frantic energy, chasing things relentlessly, not just literal hunting, obviously.
No. It feels like chasing status, maybe, or wealth, or even just the next thrill. The next dopamine hit from our phone.
Exactly, that constant obsessive pursuit. And Lao Tzu says it doesn't bring peace. It brings anxiety, restlessness.
Madness, he says. A kind of inner chaos. Losing your center.
A frantic state, yeah, pushing you out of alignment.
And the next line. Goods that are hard to come by. Hinder their owner's movements. This one's interesting.
It is. It's not just about the physical clutter, though that can be part of it.
Right. Feels more psychological. Like having rare, expensive things, maybe it sparks excitement at first.
But then comes the worry, right? The fear of losing it, the greed for more.
Yeah. You become kind of chained to it, protecting it, maintaining it. It doesn't free you.
It restricts you. It hinders your movements. Just like he says, adds layers of anxiety.
Okay, so then comes the turning point. The core advice, really.
Yeah.
Therefore, the sage is for the belly, not for the eye.
To pivot, yeah.
He lets go of that and chooses this. So the eye is what? Our desires.
Yeah.
The external chasing.
Pretty much.
Hmm.
Our insatiable sensory cravings, the constant need for external stimulation, for material things, for validation, that's the I.
And the belly.
That represents our core needs, our fundamental well-being. Food, shelter, safety, true sustenance, what actually nourishes us deep down.
So the wise person, the sage, consciously chooses the belly, prioritizes the core needs.
And lets go of the endless chase dictated by the I. It's a deliberate shift in focus, a reorientation.
Wow. Okay, there's so much to unpack here. It's short, but it's dense.
Incredibly relevant, too, isn't it?
Uncannily relevant. So we've got three main questions we really want to dig into today to understand this chapter fully. Our mission, really, for this deep dive.
Let's do it.
First up, is Lao Tzu actually advocating for asceticism here? Because when you hear let go of that, warning against sensory stuff,
Yeah.
it sounds a bit like extreme self-denial.
Right. That's the immediate, maybe superficial reading. Oh, so I can't enjoy anything.
Exactly. Is he saying we should all become monks and live on bread and water?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's more nuanced than that, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. That's a really common misunderstanding, and it's crucial to get this right. Lao Tzu is warning against excess, not pleasure itself. That distinction is key in Taoism.
Okay, excess versus pleasure.
It's all about balance. Finding a healthy relationship with the world, not necessarily rejecting it wholesale. It's not about total deprivation.
So how does that work? If you're not rejecting it, what are you doing?
Well, think about that idea from the scholar Yu. He talks about overstimulation turning someone into an aesthetic blind person.
Aesthetic blind person, meaning.
Meaning you're so bombarded by intense stuff, bright colors, loud sounds, strong tastes, that you actually lose the ability to appreciate subtlety.
Okay. Like we were saying with the palate.
Exactly. You can only register the extreme. So Lao Tzu isn't saying get rid of beauty. He's saying regain your capacity to truly see it, to hear it, to taste it in all its forms, not just the loudest or brightest. It's about restoring your sensitivity.
Restoring sensitivity. I
Oh.
like that. It's not denial, it's recovery almost.
You could put it that way, yeah.
Yeah.
And think about that line again. Goods that are hard to come by hinder their owner's movements. It's not just the physical burden. It's the mental, the emotional weight, the pursuit of wealth, of rare things. It can paradoxically bring misery, not fulfillment.
Can you think of an example?
Well, a really stark, real-world one is the story of the Getty family, particularly the kidnapping of John Paul Getty III.
Oh, right. Immensely wealthy family.
Unfathomably wealthy. But their lives, largely because of that wealth, seemed plagued by dysfunction, isolation, deep unhappiness. J. Paul Getty himself, the patriarch, was famously, well, miserly.
He didn't want to pay the ransom for his grandson at first, did he?
Exactly. He argued it would just encourage more kidnappings. The very wealth, the goods hard to come by, created this environment of paranoia, distrust, suffering. It hindered their movements emotionally, ethically, terribly.
Wow. That really illustrates the point. Wealth isn't happiness.
Yeah.
So if the sage isn't denying pleasure, what is their approach? How do they handle beauty or enjoyment?
Su Che, another interpreter, gives us good insight here. He suggests the sage can enjoy beauty. They might appreciate a good meal, fine music, whatever. They don't have to shun it.
Yep.
But, and this is the absolute key, they are not ruled by it.
Oh, master, not slave.
Precisely. The I, our desire, is insatiable. It always wants more, something new, something different. It's never satisfied. Think of it like a bottomless pit.
Yeah, you can see that online especially. The endless scroll.
Exactly. But the belly, our core needs, that can be satisfied. You eat until you're full. There's a natural stopping point.
So it's the difference between an endless chase and a state of contentment, satiation.
Yes. Knowing when enough is enough. Fu Perong also emphasizes the goal is self-control over modern pleasures, not rejecting them, mastering your desires, knowing your own measure.
Okay, self-control, not eradication.
And then you have someone like the Zen master, Han Shan De King, who puts a slightly different spin on it. He says the real problem isn't the world itself. The colors, sounds, tastes just are.
Right, the world is just the world.
The problem is our deluded thinking about the world, our attachments, our cravings, our reactions. That's what causes the suffering.
So the change has to be internal, in our minds.
That's the implication. It's an internal shift, a change in perspective, not necessarily withdrawing from the world physically.
Okay, that feels like a really important distinction. Not running away, but changing how you engage from the inside out.
Yeah.
How does a sage live this then?
Well, the core practice is living in the world, but with non-attachment. finding contentment with what's sufficient for you, your measure.
Like this onesie story.
Exactly. The mouse drinking from the river. It drinks just enough to quench its thirst. It doesn't try to hoard the river, doesn't worry excessively. It fulfills its need and moves on.
Simple, sufficient content.
That's the ideal. It's effortless contentment, really. And Hans Mahler talks about this fascinating paradox of desire elimination.
Go on.
He says desires are sort of prevented from arising by creating a state of general satiation. His example is eating. You eliminate the desire to eat by eating?
Okay. Eat to stop wanting to eat.
Basically, yes. Once you're genuinely full, the desire naturally disappears. You're not fighting it. You've fulfilled the underlying need. This ties into concepts like Zizu knowing contentment and Zizi knowing when to stop.
Knowing when enough is enough.
Which are mentioned elsewhere in the Lao Tzu too. It's about mastering satisfaction, not endlessly pursuing desire.
That's a subtle but huge difference. It's not about willpower against desire, but achieving a state where desire just isn't there anymore because the need is met.
Exactly. And you see this warning against excess echoed in other chapters too. Chapter 9 warns against filling things to the brim, holding on to treasure you can't protect, being arrogant about wealth. It says that leads to calamity. It's the natural way, BC, in that you retire when the work is done.
Don't overdo it. Don't cling.
Right. And chapter 44 asks, what's dearer, your reputation or your person? It warns that hoarding wealth leads to heavy losses. Again, it's not saying don't have things, but warning about the burden and cost of excessive attachment and accumulation.
The cost of craving more than you need.
Yeah, precisely. And Michael Lafargue, looking at this idea of agitation, really pinpoints why Lao Tzu warns against all this stimulation.
Okay, but why?
Lafargue argues Lao Tzu is criticizing activities that specifically agitate the mind, things that excite us, stimulate us, but ultimately disrupt our inner peace. He lists things like flashy clothes, rich food, racing, luxury, even excited conversation and job pressures. Sound familiar?
Sounds like modern life in a nutshell.
Pretty much. And he says this constant agitation doesn't just feel bad, it actually reduces our sensory sensitivity, makes us more vulnerable to illness, and just plain wears us out.
So letting go is actually self-preservation, protecting our inner state.
Exactly. It's not asceticism for its own sake. It's about safeguarding our well-being, our capacity for real satisfaction, by avoiding the exhausting, maddening effects of constant external chasing and stimulation.
That makes so much sense. Okay, so if it's not strict asceticism, let's move to our second big question. What does that core phrase, for the belly, not for the eye, really mean in practice? What's the deeper philosophy here?
Well, on the most fundamental level, it's about prioritizing basic survival needs, the belly, over fleeting sensory pleasures or external appearances, the eye.
Food, shelter, safety first.
The foundation of life, yes. Secure what's necessary for well-being before chasing the merely desirable or impressive.
But there's more to it, right? Wang Bi had a deeper take.
Oh, absolutely. Wang Bi's interpretation is profound. He says living for the belly makes you the master of your life.
Master. How so?
When you focus on cool needs, you're in control. You use things, resources, experiences to serve your fundamental life, your well-being. You direct things.
Okay, you're the one using the tool.
Right. But living for the I, Wang Bi says, enslaves you. You become a slave to your desires, constantly chasing the next external stimulus, the next trend, the next gadget, the next like.
And those things are never truly fulfilling, are they?
They provide a temporary hit, maybe, but then you're right back on the hamster wheel. So it shifts the focus dramatically from seeking external pleasure to cultivating internal agency. Who's in charge? You or your desires.
That master-slave idea is powerful. You see it everywhere, especially, I think, with technology and social media. We feel compelled, almost enslaved, to keep checking, keep scrolling.
It's a modern manifestation, absolutely. The platforms become the I, demanding our attention. And Michael Lafargue sees Lao Tzu's point here as a radical critique of society's values.
Deprogramming culture, you called it.
Right. Lao Tzu's challenging us to look hard at what our culture tells us is important, what it trains us to want. Chad Hansen goes even further, suggesting Lao Tzu sees these culturally conditioned desires as ideological contaminants.
Contaminants? That sounds strong.
It is. Hansen means they're not just innocent preferences. They're like viruses in our mental software. They distort our perception of reality. They blind us, preventing us from seeing things clearly and responding appropriately.
So our desires aren't even really ours. They're programmed in.
Hansen argues that, from a classical Chinese perspective, focused on behavior, language, and concepts guide action, philosophy is about effective living. So these culturally ingrained desires are like faulty programming. They trigger the wrong responses, mess up our perceptions, stop us from aligning with the Tao.
Like a bug in the system prevents the program from running correctly. That's a fascinating, almost unsettling idea. How does this relate to, say, Western ideas of finding meaning or purpose, like self-actualization?
Well, you could draw parallels. Living for the I might look like what some existentialists call inauthentic living, avoiding the responsibility of creating your own meaning by constantly seeking external validation or distraction.
Okay, just chasing what society tells you to chase.
Right. Whereas living for the belly might seem to align with something like Carl Rogers' idea of the organismic valuing process, an innate wisdom guiding us toward what truly nourishes our growth. Or Maslow's self-actualization prioritizing intrinsic needs over extrinsic rewards.
Finding satisfaction from within.
Yes, but, and this is a crucial Taoist distinction, we need Moeller's counterpoint here. He stresses the Lao Tzu isn't really a humanist text in the Western sense. Meaning it doesn't place humans at the center of the cosmos as uniquely privileged beings with special rights. For Lao Tzu, humans are just one part of the vast functioning of the Tao.
Ah, so belly needs aren't just about individual fulfillment.
Not primarily. They're about aligning our human functioning with the larger natural cosmic order. Fulfilling our basic needs is part of participating harmoniously in the Tao. It's less about personal potential and more about finding our right place in the grand scheme of things. Less human-centric, more cosmocentric.
That's a really key difference. It shifts the goalposts entirely. And Liu Xiaogan mentioned this applies to governing too.
Yes, definitely. A ruler focused on the belly prioritizes the fundamental well-being of the people, food, security, basic needs met.
As opposed to a ruler focused on the I.
Who would prioritize spectacle, grand projects, luxury military parades? Things that look impressive but don't necessarily serve the people's core needs. Moeller adds that the ideal Taoist ruler practices wu-wei, non-action, often remaining quiet and impartial.
Why quiet?
Because taking strong public stances creates division, forces specific opinions. By remaining impartial, the ruler can better serve the basic needs of everyone without getting caught up in flashy, divisive, I-driven policies.
It's a subtle, almost invisible form of leadership, like Chapter 34 describes the Tao itself.
Exactly. It clothes and feeds the thousands of things but does not act the ruler. It can be called great. That's the model. Providing essential sustenance without imposing control or seeking glory. Governing for the belly, not the I.
Fascinating. Okay, that leads us perfectly into our third investigation.
Yeah.
The line, galloping in the hunt drives men mad. What exactly is this mad mind in Taoist terms, and what's the cure?
Well, first we need to understand the Taoist concept of mind. It's the sin, often translated as heart-mind.
Heart-mind, so not just intellect.
No, much more holistic. It integrates emotions, cognition, perception, intuition. It's the center of our awareness and feeling, our inner core, really.
Okay, so how does that heart-mind go mad?
By constantly chasing external things, desires, stimuli. This relentless pursuit disrupts the sin, creates internal chaos, agitation. A.C. Graham puts it beautifully. If the heart lets the passions blur the mirror of perception, then your actions fall out of sync with the way.
So the madness is that inner turmoil, that misalignment.
Precisely. It's not clinical insanity, but a state of profound inner disquiet, being constantly unsettled, out of harmony. Lafargue explains the mechanism. Strong stimuli make our being strain to align with them. Losing its natural, internal, harmonious order, we get pulled off center.
Constantly reacting, instead of resting in our own balance. So what's the fix? How do you cure this madness?
The classic Taoist prescription is often termed emptying the mind.
Which sounds passive, or even negative, like becoming dumb.
Right, but that's another misunderstanding. It's not about intellectual emptiness or disengagement. Hanshing de King clarifies. It's about cutting off diluted thoughts.
Ah, so it's selective. Getting rid of the noise.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Clearing out the mental clutter, the worries, the cravings, the distracting patterns that cloud our judgment and agitate the heart-mind. Wang Bi calls the goal state utmost tranquility, profound inner calm.
Okay. Can you give an example of this empty mind in action?
The perfect illustration is Zhuangzi's story of Kukding carving the ox.
Yes, the master butcher.
Right. He carves with incredible, effortless skill. His knife never dulls. He explains he doesn't see the ox with his eyes in the usual analytical way anymore.
His spirit guides him, he says.
Yes. He operates intuitively, finding the natural spaces, allowing his skill to flow without conscious, deliberate effort or mental chatter. That's the empty mind in this context. It's not thoughtlessness, but a state free of extraneous interfering thoughts.
So it's about focused, intuitive flow, not a blank slate.
Exactly. Graham emphasizes it requires intense concentration and clear understanding before the spontaneous action. It's about not getting caught up in what should I do or what will others think, but responding directly, authentically from that calm center.
That's a much richer understanding of emptying the mind. But surely this idea wasn't universally accepted. Didn't Confucians have issues with suppressing desire?
Absolutely. That brings us to a major philosophical debate. Confucians like Wang Fuzi argued against just suppressing natural human desires.
What was their approach?
Moderation and channeling. For Confucians, desires are natural but need to be shaped and guided by ritual, education, and wisdom so they contribute to social harmony, not chaos.
So, cultivate and manage desires, don't just eliminate them.
Pretty much. Mahler contrasts this sharply with the Taoist ideal. Confucianism focuses on emotional training, shaping feelings, with filial piety as the root. It's about cultivating the right emotions for social order.
And the Taoist sage?
Is described as more emotionally cool, aiming to eradicate personal ambitions and wants, achieving peace through an egoless, shapeless being. So you have two very different paths. Confucian cultivation of emotion versus Taoist elimination of desire through satiation and non-attachment.
Cultivation versus elimination. Wow. Two profoundly different ways to think about self-mastery. So, getting practical again, how does this Taoist idea of achieving inner stillness apply today? Are there steps?
Well, Graham points out the purpose is to fix the heart by checking all disturbance by the passions. And he mentions concrete methods: moderation in diet, adjustment of posture, and presumably controlled breathing.
Sounds like mindfulness meditation can go.
Exactly. Ancient practices aimed at cultivating that inner calm. Lafargue adds that this Taoist stillness isn't passive. It enhances our natural inner harmony, becoming an inexhaustible source of energy, providing internal steadiness, a way of being that isn't constantly thrown off by external ups and downs.
So it's about building an inner foundation of calm.
Yes, an inner sanctuary from which you can engage with the world without getting mad or agitated, engaging from a place of groundedness.
That's incredibly helpful. Okay, so we've explored the theory, the philosophy. What does this mean for you? Listening right now, how do we actually apply this ancient wisdom in our crazy, modern, overstimulated lives?
Yeah, this can't just be abstract philosophy.
No. Lao Tzu offers a real framework. So this deep dive needs a practical takeaway, something you can actually try. This week, we want to encourage you to experiment with a sensory fast.
A sensory fast. Okay, what does that entail? Is it more a deprivation?
Not deprivation in a negative way. Think of it as consciously choosing to rest an overstimulated sense, just for a short period.
Okay. Why? What's the goal?
The goal is to rediscover your inner sensory world, to resensitize yourself like we talked about, to start noticing and appreciating the subtle beauty that gets drowned out by all the noise and intensity. It's a direct way to practice what Lao Tzu advises.
Restoring our sensitivity. Okay, I like it. Give us some examples.
Okay, maybe try a visual fast, just 15 minutes a day. No screens, phone, computer, TV. Instead, maybe just sit by a window.
And just look.
Yeah, really look. Notice the subtle shifts in color in the sky. Watch the light and shadow move. See the tiny movements of leaves, things you normally completely filter out. It directly counters the 5 colors blind the eye by letting your eyes and mind rest and reset.
Okay. Visual fast. What else?
How about an auditory fast? Maybe during your commute or just a short walk. Turn off the music, the podcast, the radio.
And listen to.
Just listen to the sounds around you. The city hum, birdsong, winds, your own footsteps, your breath. Just notice the soundscape without adding more noise. It addresses the 5 notes deafen the ear, letting silence and subtle sounds back in.
Reattuning the ears. Makes sense. One more.
A palate fast. This one might be interesting. For just one meal this week, eat something really simple.
Like what?
Plain rice, maybe?
Yeah.
Steamed vegetables with no sauce. Simple, unseasoned bread. And eat it slowly, mindfully. No distractions.
Just focus on the taste.
Yeah. Try to really savor the natural, subtle flavor, the texture, its inherent taste without all the added intensity. It's a direct way to practice choosing the belly over the palate, countering how the 5 flavors deaden the palate, resensitizing your taste buds to simplicity.
Like the slow food idea, appreciating the actual taste of a tomato.
Exactly. So remember, the point isn't punishment or harsh denial. It's a conscious choice. Slow down. Disengage from the constant demand. Reconnect with your own quieter, deeper experience.
Restoring the mind's belly, its capacity for real satisfaction, cultivating that inner stillness and contentment Lafargue talks about.
Precisely. It's a recalibration. So let's just bring it back to that core message one last time. Chapter 12's profound advice. Therefore the sage is for the belly, not for the eye. He lets go of that and chooses this.
Powerful words to reflect on.
Absolutely. So as you go through your week, maybe try one of those sensory fasts. And ask yourself this question, honestly. Are you currently more of a slave to external desire, constantly chasing the next thing, feeling agitated? Or are you actively working towards becoming the master of your own inner tranquility, finding real fulfillment in sufficiency?
The choice is always there.
It is. Ultimately, the choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into Chapter 12. It's been fascinating.
Agreed. So much relevance today.
Join us next time. We'll be tackling Chapter 13. Lao Tzu explores why things like favor and disgrace shock us so much and makes the startling claim that the body is the greatest misfortune.
Ooh, that sounds intriguing. Another layer of wisdom to uncover.
Absolutely. We look forward to exploring it with you then.